When the paternity test came negative, my fiancée screamed, "I didn't cheat. You must have used a turkey baster with a stranger's sperm while I was asleep to frame me." I replied, "That's a new one." Then I handed her the time-stamped hotel receipt showing she was with her ex on the conception date. Her parents' face when they realized she was accusing me of sperm theft instead of admitting the affair. I'm 31 years old, civil engineer, was engaged to my fiancée Amanda for 6 months when she told me she was pregnant. We'd been together for 3 years total. She's 29, works as a paralegal. The pregnancy news came as a surprise, but I was happy. We talked about kids, just thought we'd wait until after the wedding. Amanda got pregnant in October, found out in early November. She was about 8 weeks along when she told me. I did the math. Conception would have been late September. I remember that time clearly because I'd been traveling for work. 3 days in Houston for a project inspection, September 24th through 26th. Flew out Monday morning, flew back Wednesday afternoon. Amanda said she'd been home alone that week. Said she missed me, that we should move the wedding up, have the baby before the wedding or right after, whatever I wanted. I said, let's just take it one step at a time. Figure out logistics. She seemed nervous. I thought it was normal pregnancy anxiety. Month 2 of pregnancy, she started acting weird. Got really defensive about her phone, changed her passwords, started taking calls in other rooms. I noticed but didn't say anything. Figured she was stressed about the baby, about wedding planning, about work. She'd been putting in long hours at the firm. 3.5 months in, she told me she wanted to do a paternity test. Said her friend told her it was routine, that all couples should do it for medical records. I said okay. Seemed odd, but whatever. She scheduled it for mid-February, said we'd have results in 2 weeks. The 2 weeks felt long. Amanda was anxious the whole time, snapping at me, crying randomly, saying she was worried about the baby's health. I tried to be supportive, told her everything would be fine. She'd just stare at me, like she was waiting for me to say something else. Results came back on a Wednesday. I was at work. Amanda called me crying, said we needed to talk, that she got the results. My stomach dropped. I thought something was wrong with the baby. I left work immediately, drove home in 20 minutes. Amanda was sitting on the couch, holding the envelope. Her hands were shaking. She said, "I don't know how to tell you this." I said, "Just tell me. Is the baby okay?" She said, "The baby is fine." I said, "Then what?" She opened the envelope, handed me the paper. I read it. Probability of paternity, 0%. I stared at that number. Read it again, 0%. I looked at Amanda, said, "What is this?" She said, "I don't know. There must be a mistake." I said, "A mistake?" She said, "Yes. The lab must have mixed up the samples." I said, "Amanda?" She said, "I didn't cheat." "I know I didn't. You know I didn't. This is wrong." I sat down, said, "We need to talk about this." She said, "There's nothing to talk about. I didn't cheat. I was home the whole time you were gone." I said, "That's not possible." She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "The math doesn't work. If you didn't cheat, then how am I not the father?" She went quiet, just stared at me. Then she said something I'll never forget. She said, "You must have done something." I said, "What?" She said, "You must have set this up to get out of the engagement, to make me look bad." I said, "Amanda, that's insane." She said, "Is it? You were traveling in September. You could have done anything." I said, "Done what?" She started pacing, getting worked up. Then she said it. "You must have used a turkey baster." I just stared at her, said, "What?" She said, "You must have used a turkey baster with someone else's sperm to get me pregnant while I was asleep. To frame me, so you could leave me." I started laughing, couldn't help it. The absurdity was too much. She said, "Don't laugh at me. I wasn't even in town. I was in Houston." She said, "You came back at night. You drugged me. You did this." I said, "Amanda, listen to yourself." She said, "No, you listen. I didn't cheat. I know I didn't. So the only explanation is you framed me. You wanted out. Now you have your excuse." I said, "You think I turkey basted you with stranger sperm while you slept?" She said, "Yes, that's exactly what you did." I said, "I was in Houston." She said, "Prove it." Here's where it gets interesting. I pulled out my phone, opened my work email, found the Houston trip folder, pulled up my flight confirmations, my hotel reservation, my rental car, all dated September 24 through 26, showed her. She looked at it, said, "So what? You flew back at night." I said, "Amanda, I was in meetings all day." She said, "After the meetings." I said, "I was at the hotel." She said, "Prove it." I opened my photos, scrolled to September, found the pictures I took. Hotel room. Hotel restaurant. Downtown Houston. All time stamped. September 24, 7 p.m. September 25, 8 p.m. September 26, 6 a.m. Breakfast. She looked at them, said you could have edited those. I said this is insane. She started crying, said I can't believe you're doing this to me. You got me pregnant with someone else's baby to frame me, and now you're gaslighting me. I needed to leave. Went to my brother's house. Told him everything. He said that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Turkey baster. I said I know. He said, so she definitely cheated. I said obviously. He said, do you know who? I said no. He said you should find out. I said I'm working on it. Went back home the next day. Amanda was still crying, said we need to get a second test, that the first one was wrong. I said fine, let's do another test. She scheduled it for the following week. Different lab, same result, 0%. She screamed, threw the paper. Said this is impossible. I said Amanda, just tell me the truth. She said I am telling you the truth. That weekend we had dinner scheduled with her parents. I'd forgotten about it. Amanda said we should cancel. I said no, we're going. She said why? I said because I want to talk to them. She went pale. Said about what? I said about this. She said you can't. I said watch me. Dinner was at her parents' house, Saturday at 6 p.m. Her mom made lasagna, her dad poured wine. Everyone sitting around the table making small talk. I let it go on for 20 minutes. Then I said we need to discuss something. Amanda kicked me under the table. Her mom said what's wrong? I pulled out both paternity tests, put them on the table, said these came back over the past couple weeks. Her parents looked confused. Her dad picked one up, read it. His face changed. He looked at Amanda, said what is this? Amanda said it's a mistake. Both labs made a mistake. Her mom said both labs. Amanda said yes, they mixed up the samples. Her dad said Amanda, she said I didn't cheat. I swear I didn't cheat. Her mom said then how? Amanda looked at me, then said it, he did it, he framed me. Her parents both looked at me. Her dad said what does that mean? Amanda said he used a turkey baster with someone else's sperm while I was asleep to make me pregnant so he could leave me. The table went silent. Her mom said what? Amanda said he drugged me and inseminated me with stranger sperm to frame me for cheating. Her dad just stared at her, then at me, then back at her. Her dad said Amanda, that's not possible. She said why not? He said because that's insane. She said no, what's insane is him gaslighting me into thinking I cheated when I know I didn't. Her mom said honey. Amanda said don't honey me. I know what happened. He was in Houston. He flew back. He did this. I said I didn't fly back. Amanda said prove it. I pulled out my phone, said happy to, opened my email, found my hotel receipt, the itemized one, pulled it up, said I stayed at the Marriott downtown Houston, September 24 through September 26. Room charges show minibar usage on the 24th at 9 p.m., room service on the 25th at 10 p.m., late checkout on the 26th at 2 p.m. I caught my 5 p.m. flight home, all time stamped, all charged to my credit card. I wasn't in town. Her dad took my phone, read the receipt carefully, looked at the dates, the timestamps, the charges. Then he said, Amanda, when did you conceive? She said, late September. He said, what date? She went quiet. He said, Amanda, what date? She said, I don't know exactly. He pulled out his own phone, opened a calculator, said the baby is due in July. You're 20 weeks now. That means conception was the last week of September. September 24 through 28. He looked at me, said you were gone that week. I said yes. I was in Houston Monday through Wednesday, flew back Wednesday afternoon. Her dad looked at Amanda, said so it couldn't have been him. Amanda said he flew back at night. Her dad said his hotel receipt shows late checkout on Wednesday at 2 p.m. He caught his 5 p.m. flight home. He was there all day Wednesday. Amanda said he could have flown back Tuesday night. Late checkout doesn't mean he stayed. I said the minibar charge was Wednesday 9 p.m. I was there. Her dad said, Amanda, who else? She said, what? He said, who else were you with? She started crying, said nobody. Her mom said, Amanda. She said, I didn't cheat. Her dad said, then explain the test. She said, it's wrong. He said, both tests. She said, yes. Her mom said, honey, that's not possible. Amanda looked at me, said, tell them what you did. Tell them about the turkey baster. I said, I'm not telling them I turkey basted you with stranger sperm because that didn't happen. Her dad put his head in his hands. Her mom said, Amanda, is there something you need to tell us? Amanda said no. Her mom said, anything at all. Amanda just cried. Her dad said, did you see someone else? Amanda said no. He said, did you sleep with someone else? She said no. He said, then who was the father? She didn't answer. Just kept crying. Her mom said, oh my God. Her dad said, this dinner is over. I think you two need to leave. I stood up, said, actually, I have one more thing. Pulled out my laptop. I'd brought it, opened it. Said, I did some digging recently. We had a joint credit card for wedding expenses, and I was the primary on our phone plan. Amanda went white. I said, I checked your credit card statements from September. Found something interesting. Her dad said, what? I turned the laptop around. Showed them. Hotel charge. September 25th, Hyatt Regency, downtown. One night. $287. Her dad looked at it. Said, Amanda. She said, that was for work. I said, your firm is 10 minutes from our apartment. Why would you need a hotel downtown? She said, I had an early meeting. I said, show me your calendar. She said, no. I said, why not? She said, because you're not my boss. Her dad said, Amanda, show him the calendar. She said, Dad? He said, now. She pulled out her phone, opened her calendar, scrolled to September 25th. No meeting. Her mom said, Amanda. She closed her phone, said, I forgot to put it in. Her dad said, you forgot. She said, yes. I said, who was at the hotel with you? She said, nobody. I pulled up the hotel booking confirmation on my laptop. 1 king bed, room service for 2 at 8 p.m., breakfast for 2 at 9 a.m. She said, I was alone. I said, you ordered 2 entrees, 2 desserts, 2 breakfasts, for yourself. She didn't answer. I said, I also checked your phone records. Amanda's face went even paler. I said, you called someone 47 times in September. All evening calls. All lasting over an hour. Her dad said, who? I said, want me to read the number? Amanda said, don't. I read it anyway. Her mom gasped. Said, that's Brandon's number. Amanda said, Mom? Her mom said, that's your ex, Brandon. Amanda started crying harder. Said, it's not what you think. Her dad said, so you slept with Brandon? Amanda said, no. He said, you called him 47 times. Stayed in a hotel with him. Got pregnant, but you didn't sleep with him. Amanda said, I didn't mean to. Her mom said, you didn't mean to sleep with him. Amanda said, we just had dinner. It escalated. It was one time. I said, one time in a hotel room where you ordered room service. She said, you're making it sound worse than it was. I said, you blamed me for turkey basting you with stranger sperm. Her dad stood up, said, get out. Both of you. Now, we left. Amanda drove. I followed in my car. She went to her friend's house. I went back to my brother's. He said, how'd it go? I said, her dad kicked us out. He said, did she admit it? I said, eventually. After I showed them the hotel receipt, the phone records. He said, phone records. I said, 47 calls to her ex in September. He said, damn. I said, she conceived with him in a hotel room and then blamed me for turkey baster sperm theft. He started laughing, said, that's going in the history books. Amanda texted that night, said, I can't believe you humiliated me in front of my parents. I said, you accused me of drugging you and artificially inseminating you with stranger sperm. She said, because I was scared. I said, of what? She said, of losing you. I said, so you had an affair. She said, it was one time. I said, one time that made a baby. She said, it was a mistake. I said, no. Blaming me for turkey bastard sperm theft was a mistake. Having an affair was a choice. She called me the next day, said she wanted to work things out, that she'd made a mistake, but we could get through this. I said, no. She said, what do you mean no? I said, I mean no. We're done. She said, because of one mistake. I said, because you cheated, got pregnant by your ex, blamed me for inseminating you while unconscious, then doubled down in front of your parents. She said, I was panicking. I said, you threw me under the bus. She said, I'm sorry. I said, not good enough. She started crying, said, what about the baby? I said, not my baby, not my problem. She said, you can't just leave. I said, watch me. I called off the engagement that week, told my family, told our friends, told everyone the truth. Amanda tried to control the narrative, said we grew apart, that the baby was from before we got together. Nobody believed her. Too many people knew the timeline, knew about the paternity test, knew about the turkey baster accusation. That spread fast. Her ex Brandon apparently freaked out when he found out, wanted nothing to do with the baby. Amanda had to chase him for child support. Last I heard, he's paying but wants no custody, doesn't want to be involved. Amanda's raising the baby alone, moved back in with her parents. They're helping, but her dad's still furious. Barely talks to her. I ran into Amanda's mom at the grocery store a few months ago. She apologized, said she had no idea Amanda was seeing Brandon again, that she thought we were solid. I said, so did I. She said, Amanda asks about me. I said, that's nice. She said she regrets everything. I said, I'm sure she does. She said, is there any chance? I said, no. She said, I figured. She said, for what it's worth, I think the turkey baster thing was the most insane thing I've ever heard. I said, yeah, that was special. She said, my husband still brings it up. Can't believe she said that with a straight face. I said, neither can I. I'm dating someone new now. Her name is Claire. She's a teacher. No ex-boyfriends she's secretly seeing. No bizarre explanations for obvious situations. No turkey basters involved in conception. Just normal. We laugh about the Amanda situation sometimes. Claire thinks it's the craziest story she's ever heard. Says she can't believe someone would say that instead of just admitting they cheated. I said, pride does weird things to people. She said, that's not pride, that's delusion. I said, fair point. Sometimes I wonder what Amanda tells people now. If she still claims I framed her, if she's admitted the truth, I'll never know. Don't really care. The turkey baster defense will always be the wildest thing anyone's ever said to me. The look on her parents' faces when she said it, the silence at that dinner table. Her dad trying to process his daughter accusing me of sperm theft. Comedy gold. People ask me if I feel bad for how it ended, for exposing her at dinner. I don't. She spent 2 weeks trying to gaslight me, telling everyone I set her up, saying I drugged her, that I committed some kind of reproductive fraud. All instead of just admitting she had a one-night stand with her ex. The hotel receipt made it real for her parents, made it impossible to keep lying. Sometimes people need to see the proof to believe how far someone will go to avoid the truth. The baby was born in July. Girl, Amanda sent me a picture. I deleted it. Not my kid, not my problem. Brandon's problem now. Amanda's problem now. I moved on. Found someone who doesn't need elaborate conspiracy theories to explain basic cheating. Found someone who takes responsibility for their actions. Found someone who doesn't know what a turkey baster is for beyond cooking. Best decision I ever made was getting that paternity test. Amanda pushed for it, thinking it would prove something. It proved something all right. Just not what she hoped. And the turkey baster thing? That'll live forever. Every time I tell someone this story, they lose it. Can't believe someone said that. Can't believe someone would rather accuse their partner of unconscious artificial insemination than admit they slept with their ex. But Amanda did. And now that's her legacy. The turkey baster defense. Classic.